Thank you for joining us here at the Motivating Force podcast. The host who will be lighting a fire under your ass this week is Josue, an aspiring Marine Corps officer who is currently finishing the ROTC program and getting his bachelor's degree in the criminal justice field. And myself, Justin, a motivational leader and speaker who's always fired up to bring you this week's topics. We always want to challenge ourselves in bringing a new perspective to some overlooked topics.
We're taking a lighter approach this week, and we'll be trying out a new segment called Hack Your Life. The weekly drive is going to be focused on the importance of keeping a close circle. So let's get this fire lit
and get motivated.
Welcome to our Hack Your Life segment, where it's a twist on the life hacks trend. The twist being that we do the hard work of coming up with the hack and testing them out ourselves to see if you can actually benefit from it or not. We'll bring different hacks that you guys can implement in your lives to raise the overall quality of your time here on Earth. So this week's Hack Your Life involves social media and the clutter you shouldn't have to deal with on an everyday basis. We want to focus on things like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter feeds, where you can clean up the clutter and the negativity that you're seeing on a daily basis.
And how are we going to do that?
So the idea that we came up with is that if you don't know someone that you're following or you have on your friends list, remove them or unfollow them. That way they're not affecting your mental well-being. So for example, this is something that I've been doing for a couple months now, but I haven't done it to the extent of just sitting down one day and taking everything off.
Yeah, so that's what was crazy going into this was when we decided to do this and I asked you how you were going to feel about removing all those people and you're like, bro, I've been doing that. I've been doing this for a while now. I was like, what do you mean you've been deleting people off of your social media? Isn't the goal to have as many people on there as you can? I never saw it that way.
Yeah, but lately I've been seeing so many people that it's like either they have opposing viewpoints that I have on certain things, or it's just they just complain about anything. And I realize that it's not good to just have those people ranting on your feed 24/7, because then that's going to start affecting your outlook. So I'll just sit like at work or something and spend 10 minutes going through my feed and taking people off.
So just like as you saw the negative post, you were like, you know what? That's your fourth one today. Meh, you're out.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you just went and did this hack yourself, right?
Yeah, today, actually, just before we started this, I finally stopped procrastinating on it. Stopped putting it off.
All right, so let's tell them about that experience, because you focused on Facebook.
Yeah. It felt crazy to do this. Here's the weird part, right?
Yeah.
All week I've been putting this off because I was like, man, this is going to be like so weird. I know I'm going to lose a lot of friends when I do this. And it was kind of like, I don't know how I felt about that, right? Because you want to talk about like your inner ego and stuff, your popularity, things like that, right? Your type of connections you have in your life. And all these things were running through my head all this week as I was waiting to put it off until today. So that way it's obviously a Hack Your Life where we've done this.
Yeah.
Man, let me tell you what. As soon as I clicked unfriend on that first person, it became easy.
Yeah, it was just one after another after that.
Oh, yeah. I know because you were keeping track with the counter to kind of see the difference between unfollowed and unfriended people. And it got to the point where you almost weren't even keeping up.
Yeah, I had to stop you because, yeah, you were going too quick for one click on my end.
Yeah, exactly. I was just realizing between, especially like deleted accounts and stuff, that was easy. You'll be amazed at how many deleted accounts you have on your Facebook. Like how many people you have to delete that don't even exist anymore. So there's that. The other end of it being, once I realized and I was like, no, this person's toxic to me. This person's toxic to me. I don't even know who this is. Or I've talked to this person one time in my life and then that was literally it. And just ramping through my list, I went from 335 friends when we started this. And deleting all these people took only about 10 minutes. I have 96 friends on Facebook now.
Yeah, that's a lot of people that you're getting rid of. It goes to show you it's not just people that are posting negative or are toxic to you. It could be just people that that they don't post anything and you still don't communicate with them. So it's really, what's the point of them being on your friends list?
There is no point of having them on your friends list, that's for sure. I mean, in total, I deleted 239 people. But think about how that makes you feel. Up front, it's like, yeah, man, I know all kinds of people. You need something, I got somebody that could help you out with something. Anything, right? Because I know all these people. And then you go through that list and you realize, man, you don't really know a whole lot of people.
No, and it could be like back in the day, especially when Facebook just started, you kind of friended anybody and everybody.
Yeah, it's cool. It's still cool to do now.
Yeah, so you have the one-time experience with the person. Yeah, you know them in real life, but they're not really contributing to your feed or your overall life at this point. You met them one time, you want to add them into your feed.
Yeah.
You don't really know that person, so that's why we're kind of it's like cleaning that clutter.
Oh yeah, I mean, my feed is almost empty now, but everything that's on there is actually meaningful to me. It's something I want to actually see because it comes from people I somewhat care about at the very least.
Yeah, and I like how you said that you care about, because I noticed some of them you hesitated on when you were doing this. And there was one specifically that it was more or less like the guy passed away, unfortunately, rest in peace, but you decided to keep him.
Right. So I do have a couple people on my feed that my friends list unfortunately passed away in the last couple of years. You know, God bless them. But obviously they have nothing more to contribute to my life when you want to think about it that way. But there does come a time where it's always good to look back on that, see that positivity.
Right, like the in-memory posts that do come up where they're tagged in, it's like you get to think about them again. It's not a negative thought.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I think about that and I think about how I would use that same concept to keep people on there who are still alive, right? Some people that I've didn't delete because I'm just like, no, man, I've known them since pre-K, right? I've known this person pretty much my whole existence on this planet.
Yeah.
No matter how they contribute to my life, I'm not going to delete them because if I see them, just seeing their name brings up these vast amount of memories.
Yeah, it's like on principle that you're making that decision at this point.
Right. So even though some of these people that have unfortunately passed away too soon, I may not have known them forever, but it's that they'll always be there in memory for me. It's almost like keeping that photo album of them around.
Yeah, which is good. And also, at the end of the day, it does come down to being your choice when you decide to implement this hack. If you want to try it for yourselves, you don't have to delete everyone like a hard cutoff. If you have that history or it's just somebody that you're second guessing if you should take them off or not, go ahead, keep them on for a little bit. You can always try this hack multiple times.
Yeah, like the way you do it. Like you said, there's some people you'll see that are like, man, this person's being real toxic right now, but on one hand, they might not be, right? They might just actually be going through a hard time, and they're just venting that out. So once they come out of that, you realize, you know, they're good people that kind of have around.
Yeah, and that's why it was tough for me to do it on Facebook, because I know people have those phases, or they start like being very political for some things, but I know that's gonna go away after a while because I know that person a little bit better than that. Right. But Instagram is the one I focused on more, because I did have thousands of people that would follow, but now I'm down to under 200, I would say, on each page. Right. But that's also, like, I follow a lot of marketing or things for the car or things for, like, shop, you know?
Yeah, you use it as Instagram is used in, at least our case, as that different tool. We don't use that to keep up with our friends. We use that as our form of networking. Being as we are car people, you know, we use that to see what new car products are coming out, who's got what type of car. We like looking at beautiful cars all day. And we also like knowing where these pop-up meets happen, which are, for people who don't know, it's just a surprise kind of, hey, we're going to meet at this location, because typically it's frowned upon to have a large group of loud cars congregate together. So it's that kind of thing. It's not even people you know. It's just people who live in your area.
And they happen to have the same hobbies as you do, so it's a good feeling to be around them at times.
Yeah, you get to still have that community connection with them through Instagram. But that's also where I feel this life hack would be definitely great to practice on Instagram first. before going over to Facebook. Because on Facebook, man, you delete somebody and you know that they're going to know.
Yeah, because it takes you off of their friends list. On Instagram, it's just you unfollowed them, but if they follow you,
They'll never know.
they'll never know because they still follow you.
It's interesting, too, because there was a couple of hesitations on my end where I was like, man, if I delete this person, I'm going to hear about it from other people all the time. But then why do I feel like I'm socially restrained in that sense? Didn't think about it too hard, but hey, man, there's a thought for you.
Yeah, and that's one big thing on why I wanted to mention the different kind of social medias. I don't think Justin has a Twitter, and neither do I, so I can't really talk much on that regard, but I do know a lot of memes and a lot of rants happen on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that could be the source of a lot of people's negative mindsets when they just get nothing but rants all day. I know Facebook is more on that personal connection, and Instagram is more about what you see and they post. Like,
Yeah, it's almost like an order of seriousness, right?
so it's whatever you guys use the most, whatever you feel that's affecting your mindset. Try implementing this hack on that social media first. See how you feel. See how your feed's gonna change within a day or two.
Yeah.
Because my feed now on Instagram, I follow probably 100 people, but I scroll once and I'm already at the bottom of the feed.
And see, this is going to upset some people, though. This is why people aren't going to want to do it. Because they won't be on their phone as much. They won't be on Facebook or Instagram all the time because they've already gone through everything that's new.
But that's a good thing, because then you won't feel like you're addicted to social media. If anything, that's helping you get off that need to be on the social media all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a byproduct of it, but I feel that can put a strain on some people. A lot of people use that to pass time. Now, of course, I mean, you do have browse section and things like that on Instagram to still see, like, things you're interested in.
Yeah, and I understand people are going to be hesitant. I mean, it's still worth a try.
Of course, man, just getting that positivity out there.
I mean, it worked for us. We're seeing a difference. A lot less negativity on our feeds, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, less negativity and less time spent on it where we can get out here and actually do things in the real world.
Right.
That's great. But like you said, as we tie this all together, we're talking about different levels of seriousness within the different types of social media. That does bring me to this week's topic, where we're going to be talking about keeping a close group of friends and how the same thing applies that we're using online to the real world, where we have these different rings of
relationships.
So why don't we go ahead and jump into that now? All right, everyone. Welcome to this week's drive. As you can tell, we are going to be talking about keeping a close circle of friends, as well as just relationships in general, what people mean to you, the effects that people have on you, and why it matters. Of course, after we did this life hack, gave it a try, saw the positive influence it had on our life, it got us thinking a little more seriously about this topic. There was obviously a little more here than what we had originally thought about. Being as we are, we naturally did a little bit more research and came across some really interesting points here. Getting behind the science here, to create a good standard for yourself, there is a gentleman who came up with something called the Dunbar numbers. What these numbers are have to do with sociology and how many people you can actually have social interactions with at one time. The whole summary of his numbers came down to you can only have 150 people that you interact with at any given time. If the number is more than 150, essentially, you're lying to yourself.
It's the quality of each interaction you're having that's going to be affected by that once you start going more than 150 people.
And this is what came to be really prominent on pretty much the last little bit of research that was done by him, where he said you can only have 5 people that you consider to be close friends. You can't have more than that. For that same reason, the quality of the friendship will diminish. So we started thinking about the quality of friendships that we've had. And obviously, as you guys know, me having 340-ish people to try to communicate with all the time, that's going to put a little bit of strain on what I can offer people, right? So as to say that there is a positive side to maintaining well-groomed relationships, and just making sure that you're not getting out there too much. This way you have something to bring to the table. After doing that little bit of research there with Dunbar's number, we came across a gentleman named Blaz from agileleanlife.com. He kind of came up with these rings of a relationship. We did take the premise of his idea here and kind of expand it to something that made a little more sense to us, but the foundation of this is based off of what his study and research has found, so we do want to give credit where credit is due. And it's interesting that he uses these rings of friendships and relationships compared to any other type of scale, which is where we still decided to use the rings because we thought, well, maybe there's a better way to really word that. And what we came across is that it's actually perfect. We thought about comparing it with a pyramid scale, which is something you see with the FDA talking about your food consumption. But we realized that the scale relies on the smaller tier to be there. Whereas in rings, all you're doing is putting a bigger ring around a smaller one, and you're building this wall of connections for yourself. But all these rings work independently. You can remove some of these rings from your life almost entirely and not really have this dramatic effect as you would, say, if you tried removing a layer of a pyramid.
So with that concept of the tiers that you just mentioned, we kind of came up with this theory or this idea of our system that we're calling like the 5.5 rings of relationships. And to cover those briefly, just so then you guys have an idea, the innermost circle that you're going to have with you is going to be focused on intimacy. Then you're going to bump it back a little bit, and that's going to be family. And these are kind of tiers of importance.
Obviously, with you being in the center, that's how connected they are to you.
Right. So then after family, we're going to have tier 2.5. And this is where we kind of tweaked the previous scales that we've seen because we felt it's important to have that non-blood family category. And we'll get into each individual ring in a little bit. Tier 3 is going to be friendship. Tier 4 is going to be peers. And the last and final ring that we have for the 5.5 ring is going to be exchange and transactions. But with every ring that we have, the most important aspect of it is trust. Because you can't have a good quality relationship with anyone without having the trust there to begin with. And that's why we wanted to kind of talk about the quality of a relationship over the quantity of a relationship and break down the trust aspect being the key form of any relationship or engagement that you have.
Yeah, and trust really is the most important quality. You can see going through each tier here, especially if you start off with like intimacy, you're talking about one person. This is the person that knows everything about you.
And that person's typically going to be your other half because it's your significant other, it's your wife, your spouse, your husband.
And then that trust starts to diminish as far off as getting down to exchange. And by exchange, we're talking about the cashier, your own customers, anything involving business, your doctor's visits. It's not that you're really placing the strong trust in their ability to do something for you because you don't really expect too much from them. It's just you're there for a specific exchange. No more, no less. So the higher up you get, going back into these tiers here, the more trust you have with that type of connection with them.
And that trust aspect kind of ties into that life hack as well that we did. You could be putting your trust in the wrong people, but by cleaning out that negativity, it really helps put the trust in the right people at that point.
So with evaluating all these people that are in your life, who you have there, who you have around, who you should trust, and probably who you shouldn't, but still need in your life, hence peers and exchange categories, right? We're talking about your efficiency here. The more people you have inside of all these rings, the more you're going to have to mentally process who's allowed to know what, who you're allowed to confide in, things of that nature, whose opinions you should take seriously,
right?
Things that you should actually learn from. That does get a little convoluted when we talk about, say, for example, when you go to the doctor's office. That's obviously an opinion you want to listen to.
Right.
But when you get down to your peers here, and we're talking about some coworkers and other acquaintances, their opinion doesn't really matter much. but they're in a closer tier to you. This is why it's an important aspect to have this type of mental clarity, being able to have that efficiency, so that way you can spend your energy, your social energy, as responsibly as possible. You're not going to waste your time on sorting through this when you only have 10 people to pick through compared to 100. It doesn't make you any less of a person to have fewer friends or fewer people to talk to than if you had 1 million people to talk to. That type of sociability or that type of popularity was really only important in high school. And even then, was it really? I mean, what was really important in high school? Probably nothing, right?
Not really.
Yeah. So that's one point there for you to consider.
And even when you bring up like things, exchange or like doctor's offices that you brought up, if you have 2 stores that you're trying to go and get a transaction with, they both sell the same thing. If you don't have that trust, like if it's a sketchy person that's working the front counter at one store and the other store is a little bit cleaner, more well lit, the trust is going to kind of lead to the cleaner area, and you're going to want to go make the exchange in that relationship with the cleaner store than the sketchier store.
Yeah, and you'll only be able to realize that because you still have that energy to do so. You don't talk to so many different kinds of people a day that you get this diluted perception of what's going on around you. You don't think because you met one person who was dirty, in whatever perception you take that as, and they turned out to be a great person, now you're going to feel that way about everybody, when reality, your gut feeling about people is usually right.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't let that one anomaly change that for you, and you end up putting yourself in danger just because you know so many different people that you would just expect these things out of absolute strangers. When we talk about these types of strangers and everything, this is why and putting yourself out there in a dangerous environment like that by having that dilution of what types of people there are out there for yourself. This is why it's so important to have that close circle of friends, because your inner circle is really that original safe space for you, right?
Right.
Got to hit those trendy words, man. People can relate to that. They
That
understand.
safe space. Yeah.
Yeah. The real safe space, because you have actual friends in your life. This is maybe why in colleges we need actual safe spaces, because people don't have that type of friendship anymore.
Yeah, because in college you kind of just have those peer level relationships with people where you're just kind of forced to be in the same area with them. And then after that, once that class is over, once the semester is done, you don't tend to see those people anymore. So you're going to call them your friends, but that original safe space when the class is over isn't going to be there, because they're not bumped up into that friendship group properly.
And let me tell you, man, that was crazy for me to kind of put that into perspective here, because for myself, going through high school, I was the type of guy that was everybody's friend.
Right. We both went to a small school in general. So yeah, I was the same way.
Yeah. Well, of course, that made it a little bit easier, but you still had people who were in their cliques. And of course, even though everybody knew everybody still kind of stayed in their own cliques. But for myself, you didn't really know what clique I was a part of. I'd be talking to every different group of people all the time. I had this idea that I could get out there and just be who I was with literally everybody in the real world when high school ended, and I was going to make all these friends. And man, do people want nothing to do with you sometimes.
Right.
Because they see you and they put those predeterminations on you of who you are. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but my whole point with that really is those people in high school, none of them are solidly my friend. I've had those 5 people, right? We talk about Dunbar's number. I had 5 people through all of high school that I could call my friend, were always there. But I had that perception of, well, everybody here's my friend. And then high school ends, and I start calling people and like, oh, let's hang out, let's do this, let's do that. And the only people to actually come through were those original 5 people.
Right. And that's what I'm saying about you're forced to be in that high school. So everybody's essentially a coworker. You guys are all there mingling because you kind of have to.
Yeah, we all work together.
Yeah. So it's giving you that false idea of friendship, when that's its own category that you analyze outside of what you're forced to do at the time. So that's why it's important to realize what we're saying early, because you can implement these 5.5 rings of relationships even if you're in high school right now. Start realizing who's an actual friend and who's just a peer.
Yeah, because you have so much in common with everybody. The sense of you all are doing literally the same thing day in and day out.
You all hate the teacher. You're all taking the same class. That's what's going to bond you. But outside of school or outside of college, you have nothing in common. So it's to get away from that idea that like you had, where coming out of school, you're going to be friends with everybody, when that's not the reality of the thing.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that either. I think that's really the driving point, especially talking about kids who are in high school currently, because they think it's the end of the world.
Right.
What do you mean somebody doesn't want to be my friend? Well, that's what I mean. It's not a bad thing. It's better for you even to keeping this close circle.
It's good for you mentally to have a group of people that actually care about you and not just be your friend for namesake.
Yeah, that support goes a long way in you doing what you actually want to do in life. You can't keep somebody tagged along that keeps pulling you down, doing negative things, because ultimately it's just going to hinder your progress. There does have to come a point where this, and I can see where this is tough for some people, because friendship is a very emotional thing. But when you start going through this type of evaluation for people, there's almost no emotions applied to that. Or to the best of your ability, you should not be applying emotion to that.
Yeah, it should be a logical approach that you take on it, because it's affecting you.
If you keep people around just because they make you feel good, but that's through partying all the time, or you keep certain people around just because they're attractive when really they have all kinds of bad things going on with them, you're not doing any good for yourself.
None whatsoever.
The good news for you is you don't have to completely eliminate people. Sometimes people can just get bumped down a tier. So this way you can understand where people's places are in your life. Not everybody deserves the same respect that you have to offer.
Not everybody deserves the same time that you have to offer.
So with bumping up and down these tiers here, let's really get into these 5.5 rings. How do you want to kind of start this?
Well, we kind of hit the exchange ring a little bit when we talked about the different stores that you can interact with, or just businesses in general. We're talking about peers when we mentioned the high school, because that is a good angle to hit on people that we do want to focus on this, because you can get depressed because people aren't your friends, or you feel like everybody's out to get you. And that's really an important part of your life to realize this and to not let it affect you so negatively. But in reality, if you look at it like networking.
Yeah, networking is super important, especially when we talk about that peer aspect of it. It is a little stronger than exchange. There's more going on. There's some favors being passed around here. And in my case, I have certain people, like I work at a mechanic shop, right? Fix cars for a living. So obviously we deal with tow truck drivers all the time. We have one guy really likes us, likes our work ethic. So whenever he picks somebody up, they don't know where to go. He automatically just brings them to us.
Right.
So he's already naturally driving this business our way, and he's getting, of course, paid to get that car towed in. But that networking comes into play when, say, my car breaks down. Typically speaking, you don't know who to call, or, if you have AAA or something, you just ring them up. You just search up your local tow truck driver. In my instance, where I get to use these types of peers to my advantage, I get to call up this guy that does towing for the shop I work at. He's towed my car 30 miles. And if, most adults here know what that would typically cost, he charged me $30. It goes, oh man, I bring cars to you all the time. You help people out all the time. You've done oil changes even on my tow trucks. Just cover my gas. I'm good. That's where that peer-to-peer connection is advantageous for you. That's why it's great to have those people around. In a way, we do work on progressing ourselves forward with that. He's helping me out because he already knows I got to pay for whatever it is to get my car fixed.
Right.
Because even for myself, I still pay parts, right? But in his case, it's man, you already hooked me up and give me so many deals. You know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. That's where you see a lot of this in peer-to-peer, because there isn't really that emotional connection with these people. It's just, hey, yeah, I can kind of take advantage of you from time to time, and you can do the same to me, and we're all better for it.
And that's why that person specifically would be in your category of peers instead of exchange and transactions, because the peer-to-peer ring, we're describing it as coworkers, acquaintances, or people that you interact with on a frequent basis. So in your case, you were able to get that networking out of somebody that you interact with on a frequent basis, which bumped them up from tier 5, which was exchanged, to tier 4, which is peers.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. For some of these types of things, you don't have to really analyze where people belong, especially when you're talking about tier 5 and 4, right? This exchange, or your peers in general. Naturally speaking, they already kind of take their place with this. The way that these rings do work, obviously, the further out the ring gets, that means that that ring is bigger. There's a reason for that. There's more people in there.
Right.
There's more people in there. You have a little less tolerance on who should be in and who should be out. So 5 and 4 is really just even more so of a mixture than the other tiers. You don't really have to be too careful with these tiers, just in case if you ever need to drop somebody from, say, the next tier up, right? That smaller ring, the friendship ring, if they really do need to be a peer to you and not actually a friend, that's the only real consideration here. But as far as the exchange and peer ring, if you really just kind of let that be and just recognize that it's there, you'll be just fine. It's really coming down to focusing on these next rings coming up that make that difference.
Right. So the next ring that we're going to be talking about is friendship. And this is a big one because a lot of people's friendship ring tends to be bigger than their peers ring. When we made up this idea of the 5.5 rings, we kind of compare it to a Bohr's model of the atom, where you have just a few electrons in the closer rings, and the farther you go out, it gets more and more. You don't have 2, and then you bump out a ring, and then you have 5, and then you go back out, and then it goes 3.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. I mean, you guys see here who likes science more.
Whoops. But the idea is that it's a constant growth out, and it doesn't fluctuate with the size of each ring. So friendship, a lot of people can end up being like a wolf in sheep's clothing when you talk about nostalgia being an aspect of that friendship. Because you can have a lot of friends that, like you said, you went to high school with, and they bring back those memories of being in high school and what you guys did, but now you guys are adults. You have nothing in common now.
Yeah, 2 completely different paths in life. That doesn't mean I have to eliminate them, though. I mean, I could. It's probably time for them to become a peer.
Right, because if it's something that you don't stay in contact with them on a day-to-day basis, or you guys don't talk frequently, but you guys happen to run into each other, and you go, oh yeah, he's my friend. Oh, when's the last time you talked to him? You know, like 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good friendship, bro.
Yeah. That's great friendship. So you would want to reanalyze that situation and maybe bump them down to 4, like you said. But there's different examples. Like distance can be a tricky thing when analyzing this as well, because people can have long distance relationships. But on the same hand, people can have those relationships that once they do get that distance in between them, the friendship kind of falls apart.
In a way, that's a beautiful thing, though, because if distance can tear your friendship apart, how strong was that friendship to begin with?
And that's the great thing of being able to analyze this.
Yeah, really making those decisions. Because now you're still going to see those people on, say, your Facebook or on your Instagram. You're still going to see that name and you're going to be like, oh yeah, this person was important to me. And you're going to take their new opinions a little more seriously. And that can have a negative effect on you. And at the very least, it's just taking up your mental energy, your mental space.
Like when I was saying that people can have that distant relationship, it's all a matter of effort. If you're giving those people time and energy to try to communicate with them and they're not reciprocating that to you, and you feel like you're just talking to a wall at this point, that's not a great friendship to have, and you should probably make the bigger decision of not wanting to continue that, because then in the long run that's going to affect your mental state, and you're wasting more time thinking about and worrying about that person, when who's to say they don't even think about you.
Yeah, that level of friendship there, it's not mutual. There was some research I did on that too. I didn't really write any of it down, but it's crazy how many people do not have mutual relationships, like with their friends. I want to say it was somewhere around 60% when they took people who considered themselves friends and they gave them like these charts to fill out of like scales 1 through 10 on how much you trust the other person and situations you would do with them or not do with them. And they found out 60% of the time that between the two people, they did not feel the same way.
Oh, wow. So just simple tasks, they would be like, I'd rather not do it with them because they're asked individually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. And so that makes you think about what you should really be doing with your life. How many people should you really be helping out there? I mean, obviously get out there and help the world, but how many people specifically are you going to devote your time to if they're not there to help you? It's one of the few things that it's in a way that it's good for you to be selfish with when you have that type of moderation with that selfishness, because we're talking about things that directly affect you.
Right.
If you feel like, oh, it's selfish for me to drop this person because they're going through a bad time, if there's nothing you can do to help them, then yeah, you probably should drop them. Because all you're going to do is you're going to bring yourself down.
You're just going to be exposed to that negativity all the time.
Yeah, and then now how are you supposed to help the world, right?
And in the same sense, when you think of progress and progressing your life, if you have friends or people that you think are friends, that when you tell them something that you're trying to start this business or you're trying to move up in the world and all they do is make fun of you or put you down, saying things like that so many people are already doing that, and they're not trying to build you up to grow, maybe that friendship isn't great. That's something you have to analyze in yourself and go, maybe it is a good thing to drop them back a tier or two or just cut them out, because you should be able to grow as a person and your friends should be there to help hold you up.
And don't feel too bad about it either. People can come in and out of these rings at different times, and that's totally okay. You get to use that to your advantage. So you can have people that were your friends, they can drop out for a little bit if they went down like a different path than what, you were anticipating to be involved around. And then they can just come back and be like, hey, I messed up. It'd be really cool if we talked. I'm not saying don't give people second chances. I'm not saying lower people out, put them further out on these tiers, separate yourself from them, and never see them again. People come in and out of your life, man. It's a part of it. It's being able to analyze and making sure that you have just the right number of people around.
Yeah, making second chances, that's really important. That aspect of forgiveness as well. But also when you say, when we speak about time, people can also bump up over time because of experience and just being there. Like, we're going to briefly cover our relationship that we have and how it started at peers, and now it's in the next category that we're going to talk about in 2.5, non-blood family.
Yeah, this right here is going to be pretty much the best example, because this is about as far as a jump as people can make, right? We necessarily, of course, we didn't have an exchange relationship. I mean, we went to the same school together, so we already started off as coworkers in that sense. So we already had these things in common, whether they were forced upon us or not, right? And then we worked our way up to friendship, and then now where we're at with that 2.5 circle that we feel so important, making sure we have that non-blood family.
Yeah, and this non-blood family, we're not saying best friend. It's more than that. Your best friend can still kind of be in this or in the friendship area, depending on the individual relationship that you guys have.
Yeah, that friend word is still there. Keep them in that third tier.
Exactly. But now I feel that there are people that can be in your life that are at the level of being family, but they're not blood. They're not related to you directly. And that's a great ring that I wanted to bring up and talk about, because there's people like Justin that I would do anything for, whereas I have friends that I could kind of care less what would happen to them.
Right. Kind of like, oh, well, yeah, you brought that upon yourself. Good luck. But see, that's what's interesting. I'm just thinking about this now, where we see this separation here, right? We get a little more serious the further in on the rings we go. The clear difference here between friendship and non-blood family is that we stop talking about trust so much, and now we start talking about the sacrifices you're willing to make for these people. Because in a sense, you can't have those best friends who are really high up on that friendship level, and you might have the same amount of trust for them as you do with people that you would consider your family. But that's the difference. If something were to happen to that person, you're kind of just like,
Right.
I kind of have something to do today. I can't quite, stop everything I'm doing to go pick you up because your car broke down.
Yeah, I'm stuck on the side of the road. Can you come help me?
Yeah.
Which one are you going to help out? Your best friend or your non-blood family?
Yeah. So this is something that you can use to help determine where people kind of fit in your life is if you can start making some real sacrifices for people, you're really looking at that 2.5 tier ring and up.
And it's important that you said that too, because you have to think of it as, are they also going to be making the same sacrifices towards me? So you can be super caring. You can be this great person that always wants to help people out, but you could be helping out people that aren't necessarily going to do the same in return. Like you said about the mutual relationship, a non-blood family, you should be...
It has to be mutual.
Yeah, you should be given the same
amount
of sacrifice.
Yeah, I would say non-blood family would have to be mutual.
Yeah, there's no way around that one.
Okay, so since we made a clear distinction here between the friendships and the non-blood family, let's talk about why that was kind of important to have that non-blood family versus the actual family ring. And this is where you can see those differences. This is where it gets easy. These last two tiers actually are, well, I guess, hell, the whole thing was pretty easy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this whole conversation's a pretty much common sense topic. It's such a common thing that people don't talk about it. You think it's just a given.
Yeah, you kind of miss it, right?
Yeah, it's a looked over topic is what I should say.
Obviously, family, you can't pick them.
Nope.
They are there. But here's what you can do about that. When we're talking about that type of mental clarity, your time efficiency, what you're allowing to be in and out of your life. Your family, due to some of the consequences you can have, it's almost impossible to really eliminate people, right? Like to disown a family member, for say, that's a big thing, and it's a group effort. Usually, a family member isn't disowned by one person in the family. It's usually everybody decides on that, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, because in the family circle, we feel that there are going to be major repercussions if we're like, I don't like you, so I'm going to stop talking to you.
Yeah, but it's also a level of toxicity that person has. If it's somebody that's dragging everybody down all the time, you don't want to have that person affecting your family, affecting your kids. You're going to want to find a way to disown or cut that person out of your life, regardless of them being blood.
No, I completely agree with that. Obviously, you're going to keep them around you as less as possible, right? This is why you have your favorite family members or the ones you see all the time, because you're getting that type of mutual relationship from them that you, in a perfect world, should have with your entire family. What I'm getting at there is your obligation to them versus their level of priority in your life. Because without that complete disownership, you can have people in your family, like you said, the most common example is like the drunken uncle, right?
Right.
The one's kind of like, yeah, he's great at the party, but after the second hour, kind of stay away from him because he's going to try fighting somebody. It's always like the go-to thing, at least here in America, right? I don't know why we seem to have a drunken uncle thing.
Yeah, that's the stereotype.
Yeah. But that's where we talk about that obligation versus priority. You're obligated to have them there because, well, you want to see your nieces, right? You want to see your nephews.
Right.
So, of course, he has to be there. You can't say, yeah, bring your kids, drop them off. We're having a family gathering. But you, go to the bar. So they're going to be there, but their priority in your life can be lower. You can actually prioritize them under, say, peers to like that level of trust and respect. But at the end of the day, they still have to remain in that family tier.
So to give an example of when you're saying that you can prioritize them under, like, let's say peers, it would be like when you're communicating with them, you're only giving them the same amount of information that you would generally give a coworker. Like, this is what I'm doing with my life. This is what's new. Okay, bye. Yeah, you're not telling them your deep, darkest secrets or what you're doing every day.
You don't need to sit there and vent to your aunt for 4 hours at a Christmas dinner. This ring is almost a given. It is a given. It's the family that was given to you.
And in my case, it's also you have to realize that maybe start reaching out to your family a little bit more. Once you get older, you start growing away from different people. And I know in different cultures, family is the one and the most important ring. But in my case, I have kind of like an iffy past where I feel like anytime I try to reach out to somebody just to say hi, they're going to expect that I'm just asking for help or a handout. For people that are kind of in my situation, I would recommend to try to just reach out and just say hi whenever you think of that person. If you're going off your daily basis, your daily routine, and that like your uncle or your aunt pops in your head, just shoot them a text and say hi, because the level of importance of a family member is still high up there. You do want to maintain a strong family bond, but you just want to make sure you're doing it with the right people. So like you were saying, a drunken uncle, maybe that's not a person you want to reach out to, but maybe if you haven't talked to your cousin in a while, reach out to them. Just try forming that relationship with them.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose all your family members because you want to just cut everybody out.
Yeah. Here's a quick question for you on that. Does your perception of reaching out to your family, right? You're saying that they'll feel like you're just being needy, or you're there for a specific reason?
Right, like I'm just asking for something and they're going to be like, oh, what do you want?
Yeah, is that a stigma in your family? Is it because a lot of family members do that? Or was there a point in time where you were like mooching?
It could be a stigma, and it could be previous intimate relationships that I was in that kind of forced my hand on cutting everybody out. But whenever I did reach out, is because it got to an extreme that it was, in a sense, mooching. So it was like a last resort. I had nothing, so I would ask people for help. But now that I'm in a good intimate relationship with somebody else and life's going well, I feel like they're just going to associate me saying hello like it's a given that I'm going to ask them for something.
Oh, okay.
But that's why I'm saying different scenarios, different people, everybody goes through different experiences. So if people happen to be going what I'm going through and they think the same way when they think about family members, I would recommend to just say hi. It doesn't hurt. That family member can choose to talk to you or not.
Yeah. Well, it's like when we were setting up these rings. It's a good thing you mentioned that. For me personally, I put non-blood family as the second ring. I put family as the 2.5 ring. Because this is, of course, that ring that's a little bit molded together, right? Melted together, as you could say.
You're right. They usually know
There's a
more
thin,
about you.
blurred line there. And I did that because in my sense of family, I have an extremely small family. I have a mother, a father, and a sister. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
I've had an uncle reach out before. We've talked a couple times. We've hung out, done some cool stuff. Same thing with like one of my grandmothers. In essence, my family that's always been around, it's been who's in my house. So for me, of course, there is that sense of importance and loyalty there for family in that regard. But that's why I would actually put that non-blood family a little higher. For me, my family already is such a small, tight group that anybody that I would consider family, that's a serious honor, right? Would that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because that's why I brought up the whole in different cultures and different people are raised differently. I'm Hispanic, so with Latin people, you tend to have a bigger family. Family functions are going to be full of people.
Yeah, like you could rent out a freaking hotel when your family gets together.
Right, and at times there's people there that you didn't even know were related to you.
Yeah.
Trying to keep communication with all of them is pretty hard from where I'm coming from. Whenever I brought this topic up to other people that are different cultures from American or Hispanic, family is number one because they're raised on that honor system that you just brought up.
And see, that's why I have that relation with it, because I feel like that honor is a little more important with your actual family because we can't pick them. That's why they kind of drop down a little bit. Because, of course, I have that inherent honor, right, to be one with your
pack, your tribe.
Yeah. However, most honorable word you can think of, yeah, put that right there. That's what's happening. But in the reality, it's the people that I choose to put there. I feel like I can still put family members kind of in that non-blood tier, right? Because there's some family members that are like deserve that an even higher level of honor than just that generic, okay, I have to do things for you because of obligation.
Right.
Because now we talk about that additional level of sacrifice. How much more can you sacrifice for somebody? So in a life or death situation, if I'm willing to put my life in danger to save somebody, we're talking that non-blood family. We're talking that family. It's kind of molded together.
Right.
Speaking about these life or death situations, we're going to talk about this last final ring, intimacy. This ring specifically designed for your other half. This is what we mean by life or death. This person has the ability to literally make or break you. There's no other ring that's going to be there to support you and give you the guidance and material you need to either progress or degress through life than your significant other.
This ring, it's going to be the one that has the most trust when talking about this, trust being a key factor in a relationship. You're going to have more trust with this person than your family, than your non-blood family, than your friends, because this person's going to know almost everything about you. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. They should know everything about you. And the part that gets hard about it is because they know everything about you and they should be there to be that perfect fit in your life, they're going to say things to you that are not going to make you feel too good.
Right.
They're going to give you that honesty and that level of commitment, for better or for worse, may be something you don't like from time to time, right? But you need that. You need that in your life. And this is why it's so important that when you pick this person, that it is a lifetime commitment.
Right, because when you pick the person, this is also a ring that fluctuates a lot, especially in this society where people are in intimate relationships every other month.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you want to talk about lowering the quality of having somebody give you that type of hard love? Try having 4 or 5 different intimate relationships and then finally deciding that it's time to take one seriously. And then let that person tell you something that you might not like. Tell me how you're going to take that.
Yeah, there's going to be a really big wall there trying to stop all of that information from coming in.
And then you might be on your way to find your 7th intimate person, right? This final ring is really, really simple. It just needs to be handled with extreme caution. You don't have to have somebody there. That ring can sit completely empty until you're ready to fill it. And in a way, that ring really isn't empty because it's half full.
You're already holding half that place.
Yes, you are in that ring because you should be in an intimate relationship with yourself. In the same way that partner that's finally going to fill that ring can say the right things to you, can make or break you, and have that total honesty and that total trust for the rest of your life, you should have that within yourself and be able to give that to this person to complete this final ring.
Right, and that's why people say that it's important that you find yourself or that you love yourself before you can love somebody else. Because you're not going to understand that level of intimacy with somebody else unless you have it within you.
Yeah, it kind of just blew my mind there because we kind of just came up with that real quick and it made a lot of sense. And I think I'm going to take a shot for that. So, yeah, let's finish that up.
And having the people that have that same mindset in an intimate relationship goes a long way when talking about progress. Because when I spoke to a coworker of mine at the hospital, she was telling me that her husband and her have this motto that they both live by to create that strong intimate relationship and create a strong relationship in their family values. And it's an idea that came from Jim Rohn. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. But it's essentially that you're the average of the 5 people that you keep closest around you. And that's why it's so important to reanalyze all of these rings that we're coming up with. Because your values are going to reflect that. Your personality is going to reflect that. Your progress as a human is going to reflect that.
That's definitely one of the easier trigger points when going into considering this is those people that are closest to you. Do you want to be like them? That's a question to ask yourself. You are going to be like them. Those 5 people, man. Everybody that's close, you're going to have a little bit of them reflected off of you.
Right.
So if you see somebody and you're like, oh, most of the time they're good, but sometimes I'm not really feeling it. Well, guess what? You're probably going to be reflecting some of that negativity. So do your best to avoid that, right?
An example of having that boost and relationship with somebody that doesn't have to be family is an example that I kind of touched on earlier, where I was going to explain the relationship that Justin and I have, is that I have a tattoo that I've put on my body for, yes, the rest of my life.
And ironically, it's 3 rings instead of 5.5 rings.
Yes, one of them is a little bit bigger, but it's a brotherhood band. And no, it's not gang related. No, he doesn't have to have one. I got this on my own. It's the idea of that non-blood family and how I have that at such a high regard that the circle that I do have around me is usually smaller than the 5 people. So I tend to keep those relationships with them at a lot higher level and quality than, say, my normal peers or coworkers. The relationship that Justin and I have has lasted and it's stood the test of time. Like we said that we started off as peers in middle school, he ended up always being there and supporting me in the background, and that eventually brought him up a tier to friendship. Then when we separated and went to different schools, the effort was still there to be my friend instead of just that peer. So the distance and the effort were still playing a role in that friendship that we had.
Yeah, we kind of passed that test on each other. Having that distance apart, we still made it through that.
Then we started having similar hobbies. So then outside of school, we would hang out, we would ride motorcycles, we would go to car shows, we would gain more experience as friends, and then eventually gain more trust and confidence in each other. So when we started opening up, it felt a lot easier than doing so with just a normal friend of yours. Now it's been about, I want to say, 10 years that we've known each other. And I would consider him my number one non-blood family. So it's important that when you are giving these people the promotions in this ring system that we're showing you, that you can't just let them skip around. You can't go from a peer to a non-blood family member because they need that time. They need that background of history with you. If not, that's not going to be a great quality of a non-blood family.
So you're saying they can go up and down a tier, but they can't skip tiers. You kind of need to let them get their time put in and then show their actual value to you. Let them get that last earned promotion. Because once people are in your non-blood family, they really shouldn't leave that.
Yeah, they're usually the people that are going to be there for life.
Yeah, you still have the word family there. It's almost going to take a level of disownership to get rid of somebody who's non-blood family.
Right. Well, with the exception of the intimacy ring, like we did say, that one does fluctuate, but it's because it's a different relationship.
That's
in general.
It's because of how society accepts that. Call me old school, man, but when we talk about that intimacy like that, there's one person there. That's it. It's the way it should be.
Right.
We just choose to go a different route with that because as humans, we like picking the easy way. We like being happy all the time. We find a problem with being sad. But when you have the right people around to support you, when you are sad, they'll be there to help embrace it. Make you feel good through it. Bring you up, let you progress through life the way that you should.
So remember everyone, this is all based on the individual level. It's more of a guideline and a reminder to just analyze the placements of the people in these set rings that we gave you and prioritize the time and effort you give them, because having that mutual relationship is what's important. Just try to improve the quality of every level of relationship you have. So also remember, give that life hack a try. Try cleaning out that clutter. Let us know. We would like to see some comments down below of how many numbers you're dropping, what results you got, how your feed's looking a lot better, or if it's not, we would like to know. Leave a comment down in the comment section or post it on social and tag us. Thank you all for listening so much. Remember to like and share the video. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell if you haven't done so already. Episodes drop every Monday at 8 a.m. Thank you guys so much. Now go and get